Hello, everybody. Welcome to Health Life Design Podcast. John Hewson here. Today, we're speaking with Cassandra York from Design Alchemy. Welcome, Cassandra.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Now, Design Alchemy, Design Alchemist. Tell us, what's the definition of that?
Alchemy is an ancient term, effectively, in human evolution, really. The idea is born in philosophy, but also chemistry, and other arms of science, as well as art as well. And it's the bringing together of natural elements, each unique and beautiful on their own, but when brought together as a collective, they make something much better.
Right. Now, you're an interior designer as such, but this is an extension to the design service that you normally offer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So it sounds incredibly scientific, I must say.
It does. It's very much research based, but it's also my own life experiences, observations based. So effectively, as we live our lives, we're collecting our own data as well. So I'm quite good at analysing that detail, and I've come up with an idea that literally is born of a need for meaningful change.
I love the way people celebrate their life experience because, as you know, with the brand building that I do, it's some people are challenged by that, but all of our experiences build the person that we are, and if we're able to, I guess, understand the benefits of that and what it can give other people, that's an incredible. I guess it's an incredible benefit to self, but also others.
It is, and actually, I feel quite privileged to be able to help people this way with my abilities.
Yes, yeah. So, what are some of the services that Design Alchemy offer?
Well, there's three main categories. I am a consultant design practitioner, and in delivery of the physical design, that's drawing elements that actually create an emotive response. We all psychologically react to everything in our environment. So on the physical design perspective, what I'm actually doing is drawing in elements that do create benefit to our overall well-being in the physical space. But also I provide this service in the business paradigm as well. So how businesses can change, develop and grow into far more positive mindsets, but also deliveries and services.
Yes.
Again, to emphasise betterment of well-being lifestyle.
It's interesting how you said how we all respond to our environment, and we're all born with our senses, and as we've discussed before, we don't have 5, we have 7 senses, and we often forget why we've got them, don't we?
Yes. Absolutely. I found in my own journey, reflecting on even school and tertiary education, I always learnt best when every sense was engaged, and that's when really that information sunk in and then became knowledge.
Yes, yeah. So I guess if I want to engage an interior designer, why should I engage Cassandra, the Design Alchemist?
Because not only am I well practiced in the skill of design and application to the built environment, I've got a wealth of experience that I'm able to actually deliver into those design elements. And it is, as you mentioned earlier, science-based as well as art and creativity-based. And in context of science, I have a very broad understanding, which is all based on appropriate research data in the areas of psychology as well as neuroscience, but also a developing scientific field referred to briefly as P&I, but the terminology actually is psychoneuroimmunology. So it's the study of the connection or the relationship between the central nervous system and our immune system. And there's quite a lot of detail in that. And one of the abilities I do have is being able to draw on the elements that can assist in creating a beneficial environment to assist our nervous system as well.
Gosh, I'm loving this. I'm not sure whether I'm enjoying a history lesson, a medical lesson, or a biology lesson, but it certainly does make you think. And I mean, clearly, as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking about how I'm responding to what you're talking about, because it is who we are as humans, and we do react, don't we? And the fact that you go back to nature, tell me about that component.
Nature, I believe, is vital. I do strongly believe that nature is our primary source of knowledge. And the intellect of nature, in my view, far and beyond supersedes the collective intellectual nature of human beings. So meaning, in short, there's so much we can learn from the elements of nature, but also just how those structures work, and understanding on the deepest level we possibly can.
So clearly a component of what you're offering is responsive behaviour, I guess, to some degree.
Yes.
What type of client would come to you?
Well, the sectors of industry that Alchemy is available for, as mentioned earlier, the design industry, so the physical built environment, but also then within that category of the consultant design practitioner, I can also provide strategy and innovation for businesses to shift and change their paradigms into a more positive direction. But another sector of industry is medical, and this is where the P&I design practitioning comes into place.
Elaborate on that.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, that particular area of study is focused on the relationship between the central nervous system and our immune system. And what I've learnt about our immune system, it's a very delicate balance. We naturally need our immune system to work well for us, but the balance is also not to have the immune system attack us as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of factors in terms of what is understood in medical science, but beyond that and interpreting that to a built, designed environment, I have the ability to interpret that scientific data and knowledge and interpret that into elements within the space. So, for example, it might be quite purposeful for first-time responders at incidents of accidents or anything that's very difficult and traumatic to deal with. So providing spaces that can help them to come back and relax, can also help them in nurtured environments with counselling, which is very appropriate. So the built design environment can assist on those more extreme levels, but in a home where you've got families and you've got the dynamics of family that are perfectly natural and the personalities, to provide spaces that collectively in a community environment work for the entire family. So that's where psychology comes into play.
Well, you know what, Cassandra, I think you are on the money. And, we're going through this pandemic at the moment, and it's only going to be a moment of time. We just don't know how long the moment's going to be. But isn't it interesting how we hear stories of how people just can't stay close to one another in their home environment because we've never had to. No. It's very rare that we've all had to spend so much time together, and there lies the psychology of interiors, which is really what you're alluding to, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it comes down to the elements that create the interior. So it's not just materials, it's not just surfaces, it's not just colour interplay and or textural interplay. It comes down to the proportioning of space as well, and how we feel as individuals within that space. So for a family, for example, it would be very important to have your communal space because it is important to support each other, but also to have the independent spaces that could be the bedrooms, it could be an office study, could be a theatre, home theatre room, but to give everyone the opportunity to will literally isolate to their own self, because it's important to have your own slow time. And as we all learn throughout life, slow time allows us to actually quantify the data that we've actually learned. How interesting.
And what you're potentially saving here is separation of partnerships.
Absolutely. But
literally.
But it's also, I'm a very strong advocate for positive mental health.
Yes.
And it is born of my own experiences in life. To explain that simply, I have lived complex adversity, of which trauma was a strong element. I am a survivor of all of that, but to be that survivor genuinely, I needed to understand every aspect and every person involved. And through that objective understanding, then I'm able to, naturally understand people more, but also understand how the environment affects us all and how society affects us all. So then that goes into the arm of psychology, which is to do with sociology and biology.
And just listening to you here, my association, I've been in the design industry for a number of years. I don't know of anybody that's doing it on this level, and not to say that people can't, but what I like the way that what I like about how you're expressing this is your own adversity has helped build the understanding of the needs of the client.
Absolutely.
And there lies what I keep coming back to is authenticity and credibility is a huge thing behind brand these days. And certainly that's what you're exemplifying today. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
It's very important to me to utilise the knowledge I've gained for very positive purposes. I would never wish my adversity or any aspect on it upon anybody else. But I have received something greatly positive from those experiences, and that is the knowledge that I'm then able to assist other people with, because there comes about certain realisations, there comes about epiphanies as well. But ultimately, all that literal data does become knowledge. And I've got very strong support within the medical field, but also within the field of criminology and law, and that's the third category of design alchemy. And what I wish to focus on there, which we'll talk about in later podcasts a little further, what it is crime prevention through the built environment. So on a very simple level, it's important when you're designing the built environment to lessen incidents of fear, because that can assist in lessening the incidence of crime. But there's two particular areas of which I'm focusing on to assist, which will also fall into the field of policy change as well.
I mean, when we go through adversity, we go through the processes that are aligned with grief, which is ultimately what that is. But I guess the outcome is acceptance, and that's what we're hearing that you've gained from this, and what you've gained through your acceptance is an opportunity to help others, which is exciting. So some of the services that Design Alchemy offer are interior design, visual communication. What else?
Yes. So in the built design industry, I am a consultant interior designer. And also within that field is visual communications, which can go to the business paradigm sector. As well, there is the areas of the practicing in the psychoneuroimmunology as well, healthcare design, which is also interior design to relate to healthcare industries.
Which is so important because we are such an ageing population that it's going to become more prevalent, isn't it?
Well, dementia in particular and any of those degenerative diseases do require a focus on the space being suitable for those people that are enduring and the families as well that are enduring those difficulties. So for the mental health care side of the design, it's focusing the knowledge I've got on different conditions, different disorders that people may be suffering, and being able to design the built space, to assist them in their recovery, but also assist them in their therapy as well.
Yeah. How did you come up with this? I mean, I know you've been dealing with your own situation, and you've been in the design industry for quite some time, but it's a leap of faith as well. What allowed you to make that move? It's
actually very simple, to be honest. I think for anyone really who is across the matters that just aren't right in the world, and obviously that covers a great deal, but it's very easy to understand what needs to change. Very easy. There's systems in the judicial areas that aren't quite, that aren't right. But there's also areas in mental health that aren't quite right. And then there's areas in design where it's also not quite right. And all three areas could be greatly impacted on improving to create that meaningful change. But essentially what I found where the challenge lies, and I do like challenge, the challenge lies in the how to make the change.
Yes.
And that's what inspires me. And someone asked me recently, well, what inspires you the most? And it didn't take long to come to me, and I'm actually inspired by what I don't know.
Yes.
So I have my adversity for survival reasons had me greatly centre on understanding, because the logic to me, if I'm to get through this, recover successfully and be a genuine survivor, I need to understand every aspect and component, but understand my own emotionality, but also understand objectively
Yes.
why people do what they do, why things occur as they occur. And society and structures of sociology are all relevant throughout the generations. So it was born of pure logic and a need to understand how to make meaningful change.
Flora and fauna have been, in nature, has been an amazing comfort to you.
Definitely.
Tell me why.
I realised, well, upon reflection of, very early childhood, but then also for what I needed in adulthood, I really did relate to nature, in particular birds. And whilst I didn't have the vocabulary that I have now when I was a child, but what I realised I was doing is using mindfulness practices with birds. It was a dissociative measure at the time to, survive, to protect the psychology of, my mind, which, allowed me to maintain, an optimal well-being during the adversity. But watching birds, I've always had an infinity with birds and a connection. So that helped me just observing. And from a very young age, I have always observed behaviour. So it's very much where alchemy is also born of, is behavioural understanding. So behavioural sciences is another area of my research and application. And in particular, when you look at the behaviour of animals and you look at their grouping sociology in their own species, but then as humans as well, there's just so much to learn and correlate and place conceptually on design to actually assist. But that helped me greatly connecting with the birds, because it was a positive dissociative method, and what I was actually practicing without any knowledge of terminology is mindfulness. Yeah. So as I was an adult and needed healing, because I had matters of, psychological health to work through, but also physiological health, because all is in one and affects the other. And I found very much for me, trees, I could literally feel regenerate the energy within me.
I love it. It's fascinating, and I totally get it. And I think, once again, I think you are so timely with this concept, and it's certainly needed in the design industry. So congratulations to you. Looking forward to hearing Phase 2 podcast. How do people contact you in the meantime?
Contact me directly through email. So that's Cassandra, CASSANDRA at designalchemy.com.au.
Fantastic. We'll look forward to having you back on the next podcast.
Thank you.
Would you please thank Cassandra Martin on Health Life Design podcast today? Thank you.